Hey guys, welcome back. So we're gonna build upper kitchen cabinets. And I did this with basic tools. I don't have a joiner planer. All I have is a table saw, a dado blade, miter saw, and some Kreg jigs. And we're gonna put this all together. We're gonna see how it goes. If you like this kind of thing, don't forget to subscribe, share, and like these videos. Let's get to building. So I started out cutting these down to size. I did a rough cut. You could do this on your table saw, or you could use circular saw like I did if you have one of these guides. Now, I was not going for the exact measurements on this. I left an extra ½ inch so later on I can use my table saw and that sled to really hone it in, or my miter saw, which I really trust as far as my 90-degree angle. What I did not do initially is align my table saw to make sure it's a 90-degree cut. Now, I just set up my framing square up to the blade, making sure I missed that carbide tooth, and then I adjusted it until that was a 90-degree angle. This would have helped me out and saved me a lot of time. It's probably close, but not close enough. All right, so we're about to do a lot of cutting. Let's talk about measurements. So these top and bottom grooves, these are 3/4 of an inch. On the bottom, I put a space of 1 3/4 up to the bottom of this groove, which gave me an overall measurement of 2½ inches. That's so the bottom face frame, which is 2½ inches, comes right up level with that bottom shelf. So when you're wiping it out, pulling something out, you don't have that ledge. I want it flush with that bottom shelf. That's the goal. I went with 1 inch on the top. I grabbed back that 3/4 inch of my cabinets, so we got more space. Seems kind of petty maybe, but that's what I went with. This groove here, this is 5/8 of an inch wide. It's not 5/8 of an inch, 3/8 inch, using my dado blade. For that 1/4 inch backing board that's gonna go in this groove, I gave a little bit of wiggle room just so I can make sure it fits in smooth and I don't have to fight with it or shove it in there. Now this, I gave a 3/4 inch space from the back to the start of that groove. Because a 1x material is just 3/4 of an inch, so it'll fit right in here. I can put it right up against the back of that backing board and we're good to go. So those are my 3 measurements. First step, cut everything to size. I cut all my widths at the same time without resetting my table saw. That made sure that all my boards are the same width, so it doesn't get all weird when I go to put these together. Now, I gotta cut these grooves. This is the scary part. Do I have it set right? Am I getting the right grooves? Are the grooves the right width? Well, I use scrap lumber and I put it through a couple times. I adjusted it as needed, but then I got the grooves for the top and the bottom. Now, a lot of people recommend, just to make it easier, do the same spacing on the top and bottom. I didn't. I changed the spacing for the top and the bottom, which made me think a little bit. I marked it and then I cut them. So then I got the space on the top and the bottom, and then I wanted a space for that back 1/4 inch plywood to slide into. So I cut that groove, and man, did I mess this one up. So I didn't lock down my fence. This is where I start making a list of mistakes that I made that hopefully you do not. So when I didn't lock down my fence, that first cut went great. The second one was a little further over, further over, further over, further over, until I noticed just by looking at it with my eye, that's way too far over. This doesn't make any sense. And that's when I found out my fence wasn't locked. Fortunately, I was able to move things around, use the opposite sides. The hidden sides had the bad cut. The side that we're gonna see is having the good cut. And everything worked out, but just lock that fence down so it's not moving on you and you got your good cut. This is the shelf hole Kreg jig. It might be called something else, but I'm gonna call it the shelf hole Kreg jig. The key is when you use this, start from the same edge. Either start from the bottom every time, the bottom of the cabinet, or the top of the cabinet every time. That way your holes line up all the way around. The beauty of this is even when you flip this over and you do the other side, the spacing stays the same. The spacing from this side to this hole is the same as this side to this hole. So your holes will always line up as long as you go from the bottom every time or the top every time. So once you get the first set of holes done, you just take this little piece, shove it in this little guy, and then that holds it in place. And then you can do the rest of the holes. You can keep on moving this down and make sure the spacing for each hole is the same. All right, so let's get this done and then we can move on to the next step. At this point, it's starting to look like a cabinet. We got it all clamped together. Now we need to make sure that it's square, so I'll measure from here to here and here to here, but more importantly, I measure from this corner to this corner, and then I compare it to the measurement from this corner to this corner, and if those equal, I know I have a square box here, and I'm good to move on to the next step. So now I'll measure from the depth of this groove to the depth of this groove, and then the depth of this groove to the depth of this groove. This will give me the measurements of that 1/4 inch back piece that I'm going to put on here. Then I'll measure from this side to this side on the flats, not inside the groove, and that'll give me the measurements of the back 1x material that I'm going to put on here for supports. And once we have that measurement, then we can take this all apart, stain the inside, and move on from there. All right, hold on, don't take it apart yet. This is a good time to mark out anywhere you want to put a pocket hole. I'm using pocket holes in order to hold the face frame on. Now in this case, it's squeezed in between two cabinets, so I can put all the pocket holes on the outside. But if there was a visible face, I would put the pocket hole on the inside because it's way less visible. And I want the outside of the cabinets, any one that's visible, to look perfect. No holes whatsoever. So this is a good time to mark them. This is another reason why I like these clamps. One, they hold it pretty square. But two, the spacing is pretty good. I'm just gonna put pocket holes everywhere where this clamp ends up. And then I'll be done. All right, now we're gonna take it apart. Then we're gonna put these pocket holes in. Then we're gonna sand it. Then we're gonna stain it. All right, guys, let's get to work. No, surprise, guys, we're gonna talk about another Kreg jig. All right, this is the pocket hole jig. I'm assuming you're using 3/4 inch material if you're using these cabinets. I'm gonna show you how to set it up if you're doing this for the first time, using this Kreg jig on kitchen cabinets, which is a 3/4 inch material. So first of all, you set this collar right here. You can loosen it up with the Allen wrench provided and move the drill bit until it comes down to the 3/4 inch. Not the tip of it, but the wide part of it. Hopefully you can see that in there. All right, so now this is the drill bit set up for 3/4 inch material. Then you want to set up this piece for the 3/4 inch material. You can see there where it's right on the 3/4 inch line. Now you're ready. You're ready to use this to make any pocket hole you want for this project. Now if you're wondering, what's a pocket hole? About to show you. Let's get to it. So in this case, I'm doing the side of the cabinet. So I'm not doing a 1x4 or 1x3, which is kind of what you normally use this for. Beautiful part about this, I just kind of line it up with any one of these holes. I clamp it down. This clamp's adjustable. You just screw this in or out in order to make it tight. It just has to be a little bit snug, enough to hold this in place while you drill it and not move around. Now you put the drill in the drill bit and you're ready. Just sink it into this hole, the hole that you lined up. Drill and 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 drill. And you got a pocket hole. All right, I'll show you how I use these pocket holes later, but this gets you set up, ready to go. I'm gonna go around this whole cabinet. And I stained it. I used gunstock, which is just the color of the stain, just because we like it. And I've been using this for the inside. So I'm doing everything that is on the inside. I put it on really thick because this oak really seems super absorbent. So it was just sucking it in. I let it sit for a little while and then I wiped off the excess. So then I let this set, I let this dry. Next I came back and I put clear poly on. I put this poly on really thick. Once again, it just seems like it was soaking up this poly. And then, even better, I got these air bubbles. Kind of freaked me out a little bit, but you know what? I just let it be. I let it sit. And it looks a little scary right off the bat, but you can fix this. After it dried, I brought it back. I sanded it all down with a palm sander. I didn't go real deep, but I went enough to where it was just all smooth. And then I took the Scotch-Brite pad and I scrubbed it down. This allowed me to see if there was any imperfections left over. This kind of left a silky sheen, which I almost went for. I thought, man, this might be the finish that I want. It is nice and it is an option, but I'm gonna go with the gloss just because it's easier to wipe down and you don't have to worry about leaving something behind in those little grooves. So I love the texture, but I don't want any texture. I want it smooth. Like I said, easy to wipe down, easy to clean. So I'm gonna put another layer of poly on. And after we got this, then we move on to the outside. Outside of my cabinets are all gonna be black. This I stained with the polyurethane right off the bat. I put a layer on, I'm gonna let bubbles do whatever they do, then I'm gonna sand it down, put another layer of black poly on, and then we're done. We're done with this poly as far as the cabinet skeleton is concerned. Now we can put this all together. So these are the side pieces, the one that I cut that 3/4 inch groove in. So that 3/4 inch groove plus the 1 3/4 inch gap here gave me the 2.5 inches that I need to make this bottom piece flush right here. This top piece, I just minimized the gap. The top piece up here, I wanted to give a little bit of a ledge so that I can put the border piece across the top, just to tie it all in, to make it all look kind of smooth with the ceiling. This 3/8 inch groove, it's 3/4 inch offset, so these 3/4 inch 1x4s can sit right in there and it can be flush. This is a French cleat, so it has that angle in there, which goes into another angle, which you can kind of see above, and it holds it tight against the wall, and it even kind of sucks it in, so you can't pull it this way, you can't pull it down. I love this solution. I think this is a great one. I definitely recommend French cleats on the back. I finally walked into my shop today and felt like, man, I might get this done. Not today, but in my lifetime. This project may be over eventually. This is the face frame. This face frame is going to attach to the box. To put this face frame together, all I did was some pocket joints. I got pocket joints here, 2 on each side, and I did that top and bottom. I'm going to use pocket joints again to put this face frame on. I'm a little hesitant, I'm a little worried that it's going to crack this face frame, but I'm using the right screws this time, so it's a step in the right direction. And I think from the angle that I'm going at, it's a little safer than the angles I was doing here. So here we go. You can see the pocket holes that I used on this side because this side's not going to be visible. It's also where it has that groove where I messed up earlier and I said the fence kept on sliding over, sliding over, sliding over. Well, this is the bad side, so I put it on the side that you can't see. And I made sure this side, the side that you are going to see, it doesn't have any of those. It doesn't have the bad groove, it doesn't have any pocket holes, nothing. So this is the visible side, this is what you're going to see. I kept that clean so it looks like just one solid piece of oak. No holes, no grooves, no anything. Because I have a highly trained eye, I was able to figure out this face frame doesn't fit this cabinet. It's flush on this end. Hangs over a little bit on this end. Just barely. If you look real close, you can see it. Fortunately, I also failed to check it before I made a door that fits this face frame just right. All right, so I guess I'm gonna rip this apart, redo this thing. Let's add that to the list of mistakes that I made that you shouldn't. All right, moving on. All right, time to put these lights in this cabinet. So I already drilled holes on each side, top and bottom, so I can wrap these lights around all the way. So I have the same light on the bottom, on the inside, and on the top if I choose to use that. I don't really have any loyalty to this brand specifically, but I wanted something I could control by an app, and it was LED that had any color that I wanted to choose from in case we want to change it later on. Right now I think we're going with yellow, but we did kind of like blue too. We'll find out. All right, so let's finish this up and then we'll get on to the next step. Got the doors done. I just used biscuit joints to hold it all together, and it's holding it pretty well. I pulled on it pretty good. I banged it against the wall. I don't think this is going anywhere. And I put way more glue than I needed to. But it's better to have more glue than not enough glue. Now, I am gonna have to sand it a lot to make sure that I don't have any of that glue residue left over when I put the stain on. But since I'm putting black stain, it really works out well, because it covers up some of the mistakes that you wouldn't be able to cover up with a colored stain. This is an excellent point that I really need to admit to you guys. There's a lot of things that I got away with that you will not get away with if you're not going with a black stain or a paint. If you're going for a light color stain, you really got to be careful not to bleed over this stain. But that's not what I'm doing. Using black stain, it covers up all the other stains. So that is what it is. If you're not, sorry, good luck. All right, moving on. All right, you guessed it, another Kreg jig. So this one helps you put the hinges in the doors. Now, I set this to 5. I did that just through trial and error. I took scrap pieces, I put holes in them, I moved these up and down, and I found out exactly where I wanted it. So now when I'm drilling into my oak, I know that I have the right distance that I want when I'm drilling this hole. So there you go. I used 5. You can assume that maybe that's what you want and use that, or you can play around with it like I did and scrap pieces of wood, or you can really live on the edge and just go for it, assuming that you got it right. I don't recommend it, but do what you want. All right, guys, we're gonna put these hinges on. Let's get to it. All right, time to put this groove in this door so later we can put glass in it. I didn't really have a good way of clamping this down to my table. Maybe I did, but I couldn't think of it. So I just sat on it, did one end, flipped it around, did that same thing. What do you know? I was done. So while I was cutting it, I used this little baby. It has the bearing, which from that bearing to the cutting edge, it's a 1/2 inch. So it went a 1/2 inch this way into that door, and I did that all the way around. And then I set the depth in my router so it would cut a 1/4 inch depth because I'm getting 1/4 inch glass. So that makes it level with the door, which is perfect. That's what I want. So in doing that, I must have either not tightened it tight enough or the wood grain just caught it right. Maybe both. But either way, it started driving down and it was pulling out of my router, cutting a deeper groove than a 1/4 inch. It got me actually on this door in particular, and I debated doing it all over, but I ended up just putting polyurethane on it, and we're gonna see how it turns out. If it's not obvious, I'm just gonna leave it alone and go with it. If it is obvious, later on I'll make another door, but this is my temporary permanent fix that's gonna go for at least the next 7 years until I make another door. Lesson learned, tighten this baby down so it don't go deeper than a 1/4 inch. All right, there you go. So I already put polyurethane on the back of it. Got the back looking good. Well, in doing so, some of it dripped over, but I knew this was gonna happen. That's why I finished the front last. So I went through, first I scraped off as much as I could without damaging the wood. And I scraped it off because I don't want it to clog up my sander, and then I keep on changing out sanding paper. But after I scraped off as much as I could, next thing, I sanded it down real nice. Now when I sanded it down, I also liked the look of this, where the black stain got into the grooves and then the rest of it was all flush wood. Ah man, maybe in a future project I'll use that and then I'll put a lighter stain over it where the black is in the grooves and the lighter stain is on the outside. I don't know. But either way, it made it real nice and smooth, really clean. Put another coat of polyurethane on it. You can see how that thing glistens as it catches the light. I love how these things turned out. Really excited about it. Love that polyurethane from Minwax. I use the high gloss just so it's easy to wipe down and just kind of like the look of it. All right, let's move on to the next step. All right, I normally don't like bringing people into my house, but here we are. I can't not show you the finished product. Well, almost finished. I still got a little bit of work to do, but man, I like the way these cabinets turned out. We were gonna put some vinyl on these doors on the back to kind of give it a frosted look and has a little design on it. And we're still gonna do that. We're gonna see what that looks like, but I'm kind of liking this clear glass. I don't know. All right, guys, don't forget to subscribe, share, and like my videos, and I'll see you next time.